Sword and sorcery fiction abounds with romanticized tales of the stealthy, charming thief. Whether in fantasy role-playing video games or a good old-fashioned Dungeons & Dragons campaign, one absolutely essential staple of the fantasy genre is that image of the lovable rogue. With their extraordinary strength, charm, and wit, often blessed with this supernatural agility and irresistible charisma and powers of persuasion, through the blessing of some mystical and mysterious trickster god of thievery. Lounging around in their super secret thieves guilds, exchanging secret handshakes and bragging about their last big heist as they gamble away their ill-gotten gold coins. That's the image we all know. But did this kind of almost supernatural thief, magical and blessed by the gods, ever really exist? As much as I hate to disappoint the realists, the answer is yes. Indeed, there were historical thieves' guilds, packed with thieves just like these artful dodgers of the RPG universes. Turns out these are more than a mere fanciful invention of some fantasy author, but rather were, in fact, derived from history. Case in point, if we're talking Dungeons & Dragons, the classic thief has always been known as a true neutral, and so was their fun-loving trickster god, usually. In other words, if it pays you off in cold hard cash, then what about good or evil? Well, who cares, really? Just so long as you get paid. That's the romantic image of the lovable fantasy rogue. But every once in a while, you get a thief in the fantasy novels that likes the dagger part of the whole cloak and dagger thing just a little too much. The kind of extra stabby kind of thug you definitely don't want to meet in a dark alley somewhere in Middle-earth or wherever, because they'll probably cut loose a little bit more than just your pouch of gold coins from your belt. Keep one well-armored hand on those throats, my friends, because perhaps the most fitting historical counterpart to that darker side of the fantasy thief are the thuggies of medieval India. The thuggies, you may ask. Yeah, speaking of thugs, well, this is where that word came from. These guys literally invented thug, and also the English word that goes along with it. The thuggies were a massive network of thieves who robbed travelers along the roads of India for centuries. With secret codes, handshakes, about 1 million hideouts across India, much like the fantasy genre thieves guilds, they were unparalleled in their skill at the thief's trade. The stuff of legend. They were said to have supernatural agility, the power to go unseen, almost as if they had the magic of invisibility, and the power to disguise themselves and charm their marks, tricking their victims into a vulnerable position, only so they could rob them. It was almost as if they had some kind of supernatural help. These thieves had such powers to climb and jump and hide and manipulate and charm. But there was a darker side to this ancient and massive network of master thieves. Yes, there was a little dark side, you could say, in the fact they all worshipped a little old goddess of murder named Kali. You see, much like the maybe just a little too stabby variety of evil alignment thief we all know from the RPGs, the thuggies had a lovely little ritual they performed after each robbery. A strangulation was mandatory, it seems, with this crowd, and a strangulation offered up as a human sacrifice, no less, to none other than Kali, this murder goddess. It was thought, apparently, all that kind of thing helped Kali bestow powers on the thuggies. Powers like supernatural agility, unnatural charm and charisma, becoming invisible so you can steal. You know, all that stuff I just told you the thuggies were actually famous for? So, did Kali actually come through on that help in exchange for, well, just a couple of stranglings thrown her way now and then? Well, who knows? But you have to admit, those thuggies do match the classic fantasy genre thief with the guilds, the master thievery, the high acrobatics and charisma, together with those ninja stealth powers of invisibility. You've got the standard thief god too, okay, a goddess technically, and most of all, you've got the whole supernatural thief type thing. Historically speaking, the Thuggies are spot on. But if you don't quite care for the Thuggies and they come across as just a little too stabby and strangly and human sacrificey for your tastes, well, you might just be of true neutral alignment then. Maybe even neutral good. Well, we've got something for everyone in this little video. Let me present to you the next real-life guild of supernatural thieves on our menu for this evening, the Latrones of ancient Rome. Operating on the frontier regions of Rome, where lawlessness was often rampant, provided the perfect setting for a crafty guild of thieves which operated Rome-wide to dig its claws in and target a merchant caravan or two, or get together to pilfer the house of a particularly bejeweled and overly wealthy government official, and so unburden him of a little of his heavy gold bars and excessively big diamonds. Much like the Thuggies, the Latrones had networks, secret hideouts, handshakes, a code of conduct every thief was expected to abide to, and a form of honor among thieves. What's more, they worshipped the god of thievery, among other things, the Roman god Hermes, Kali, but without all that murder and strangling stuff. Hermes was a trickster god who loves a good prank, especially when it was executed with the wit, charm, and intelligence for which he was known. Besides being quite the charmer, Hermes had winged shoes. What do you think that signifies, my friends? Of course, stealth, acrobatics, speed, silent movement, ninja-like, the ability to go unseen, unheard, invisible even, as it were. All the things that make a good thief. No wonder they called the lovable rogue known as Hermes the god of thieves. So we've got the guilds, the true neutral god of perfect thievery. We've even got the perfect role model in the form of Hermes' son. From mythology, Autolycus was said to possess supernatural abilities like the power to make himself invisible or transform stolen goods, which made him virtually impossible to catch. He was the archetype of the sly, almost magical thief that might inspire later criminal groups like the Latrones, who would revere Hermes as their divine example. So, with all this going for them, could we honestly say that the actual Latrones of history were supernatural thieves like their god and their role model, Autolycus? Probably the best example of the real historical, supernatural Latrone thief was the famous King of Thieves, Bulla Felix. Bulla Felix, whose name means lucky charm, was no ordinary thief. He was a master strategist and a skilled leader, operating with an almost supernatural ability to outsmart his enemies. His band of 600 brigands, composed of runaway slaves and imperial freedmen, functioned as a highly organized and efficient criminal network. They intercepted travelers near Rome, all different areas, gathering intelligence to target valuable shipments. But Bulla didn't resort to wanton violence. He often released his captives, in fact, after taking only a portion of their wealth and then redistributing it among those in need. Bulla's reputation for deception became legendary. He seemed able to disguise himself so well, he could seem to shapeshift. He could scale any wall, performing with supernatural agility, and he could talk his way out of anything, much like his role model, Autolycus. He was known to disguise himself and even impersonate high-ranking officials, rescuing his captured men and evading Roman forces. In one case, he duped a centurion into walking right into an ambush, and in another, he posed as a governor to free his men condemned to die in the arena. Much like the Thuggies, it almost seemed no man could be this good a thief without a little divine help. Besides merely being the consummate supernatural thief, though, worthy of the most fantastical RPG, Bulla Felix was also seen as a hero by many, embodying a sense of justice in an unjust world. A gentleman thief, a lovable rogue, the Robin Hood of the Romans. He redistributed wealth, supported the locals, and led his band of thieves with the discipline and authority of a ruler. His guilds worked like a parallel state to Rome. His leadership skills were so extraordinary, in fact, he was like a second emperor. A true gentleman king of thieves in history. Bulla Felix's remarkable career came to an end, however, not through battle or capture, but by betrayal and a little too much of a love for the ladies. After evading Roman forces for years, a military tribune, desperate to catch him after the emperor told them to basically catch him or hang, they discovered that Bulla was having a little extracurricular hanky-panky with the wife of a local man. Bulla didn't only steal gold and precious jewels, you see, but the occasional wife too. All in a day's work for a devilishly, actually supernaturally charming master thief, I suppose. Using the woman's disgruntled husband as a means of putting pressure on the woman, the Tribune succeeded in digging up information on Bulla's whereabouts. The famed bandit was caught at last, sleeping in a sea cave, his usual hideout, with no chance to defend himself or to make one of his famous escapes. Brought before the Praetorian prefect, Papinius, Bulla was unfazed by his capture. Smooth and golden-tongued to the last, when he was asked why he became a bandit. By the powerful government prefect, Bulla coolly replied, "Why did you become a prefect?" Implying that their roles were no different, both profiting from power and advantage in their own ways. Trolling and clearly not taking the whole thing seriously to the last, cheeky and defiant to the end, taking an interrogation that might have dampened a lesser man's trousers and turning it into a moment of savage humor. An epic burn for the likely mad prefect that still echoes down through the centuries. So, if you were ever foolhardy enough to imagine that master thief in your favorite fantasy novel was just a legend, just a little bit of harmless fun, I think we've clearly established here this evening that they're out there. History's seen plenty of examples, whether neutral good, true neutral, or a little bit on the strangly side. You can bet they're out there. So maybe put that padlock on your treasure chest full of gold and platinum coins before you go to bed tonight. Maybe better put 2 or 3. Better trap it too, because you never know if one of those divinely blessed master thieves of lore might just decide that he's feeling lucky tonight. Well, that just about wraps up tonight's tale from Lorehound. Join us as we sniff out more of history's most interesting stories.
As the hound dog entered the dimly lit library, he sensed an aura of mystery surrounding the ancient scrolls. The dusty shelves towered above him as he sniffed his way through the labyrinth of books. Suddenly, he picked up a scent and followed it to a secluded corner. With bated breath, he approached the shelf and pawed at the book, revealing the hidden scroll. As he rolled it out, he knew he had discovered a treasure worth protecting at all costs.